There's plenty of things he doesn't mention, Like there's things, in these additional texts. All these additional texts are already assuming most of the knowledge that's in Parashara. And like Uttar Kalamrita, it doesn't tell you what aspects are.
Yeah.
But it starts saying that the aspect should be within a 12-degree orb to have a good effect. And if the planet is moving towards the aspect, it's going to have a strong effect. If the planet is moving away from the aspect, it's going to have a very minor effect. It's the details. These other texts are giving us more detailed information. Parashara is like it's a real... Let's go right there. Is that for cup? I don't have a cup.
What is it that
Oh, sorry, I didn't finish it.
Okay, but we're up there. Okay, so Arruda. Somebody want to... we have two people in here that might not know what Arruda is. Mo, why don't you try to explain to Fern about Arruda?
Arruda,
It's a fun test.
it's the reflection of a house about its lord. So it represents the perception of that house. So like what other people think of that, of the signification of that house.
We're primarily focusing on Arruda Lagna for today. So, make her understand Arruda Lagna. Fern, you got to tell me if you understand what it is when he's done. He's going to try and explain Arruda Lagna to you. Mo is.
Okay, didn't hear what I said. So, Arruda Lagna is the reflection of the Lagna about the Lord of the Lagna. So, it represents the perception of that house to other people. So, what other people think of that house. It's not the reality of that house. That's represented by Lagna itself. But Arruda Lagna is like what other people think of that. So, it's perception. So, it's not the truth. It's what other people think of that.
So the A, when you say A6, that's the
Arruda the 6th house. Arruda the 6th house. But we're going to do, Arruda of the 6th house, A6. A5 is Arruda the 5th house.
So
Now, what we're focusing on today is Arruda Lagna. Lagna is ascendant. So the Arruda of the ascendant. It's generally written AL. Arruda Lagna.
AL.
Yeah, the Arruda of the Lagna. So, what is the Arruda of the Lagna? Tell us about the Arruda of the Lagna, so that she understands. She's a Western astrologer.
okay. You know what lords are of houses, right? Lords of houses, you know what those are? No? Okay.
The Lord of the sign that rules that house.
Yeah. So like if you have Aries Lagna, then Mars is the lord of that house, right?
Okay.
So then you figure out where Mars is placed in the horoscope. So if Mars is placed in the 5th house, then the Ārūḍha Lagna would be, so Mars is 5 away from Lagna, right? Then you count another 5 away from Mars. So that would be the 9th house. So then your Ārūḍha Lagna would be located in the 9th house. And then you see things in relation to that point in the horoscope, trying to figure out what other people think of you. Because the Ārūḍha Lagna represents the perception of you. It's a reflection of the Lagna. The Lagna is the reality, and then it's reflected about the lord of that house. So then it represents what other people think of in the mirror of this, of the Lord. Yeah, is the image of that. Yeah. So then that's how you deal with things on that level. By looking at the Ārūḍha, and it's not just for Lagna, it's for any houses. Any house, like A6 or A8 or A whatever, you can look at the lord of that house and then count away from the lord of that house, you get the Arruda of that house. See what I'm saying?
The Lagna is the ruler, the Lord.
Yeah, so
And Arruda is the image of that Lord.
it's just so if you have like the 2nd house, the A2, you find out where the 2nd lord.
Let me interrupt a little.
All right.
And then we'll give you back. So, the ascendant. We're going to just focus on Arruda Lagna right now. For a beginner, it's best to just take one point. So for the Arruda Lagna, we have the Lagna, the ascendant. The ascendant is represented by what planet?
Represented by the sun.
It's like the sun. It's who you are in the world. Okay. The planet that's the lord of the Lagna is represented by what planet?
Jupiter, right?
Moon.
Jupiter.
Oh, Jupiter, the lord of the Lagna.
So for example, your ascendant is Virgo. So Virgo is like the sun. You are like Virgo shining. The lord of the Lagna is Mercury. Mercury itself, because it's the lord of the Lagna, is acting like Jupiter. Jupiter is our intelligence. It's our thinking. It's our knowledge in life. So that means Mercury becomes the intelligence. Okay? So you have who you are, and let's look at it as that sign as the physical reality of who you are. The Lagna Lord is the mental reality of who you are, the intellectual understanding of reality. Now, the interaction of those two gives us to how you project yourself in the world. So based on that interaction, you get the image of how you're perceived in the world. And the Arruda Lagna, how you're perceived in the world, is ruled by the moon. And the moon is all about the mind. What is perceived?
Oh, so like the sun reflects on the moon, like literally. And
It literally is reflected.
In the thing, because the sun reflects on the moon, the Arruda is the moon.
Arruda is the moon. So just like the sun has the light from it, the moon is just reflecting the sun's light.
Right.
But we look at the moon and we're interacting with the moon and its phases, and so much of our interaction in time is based on the moon. The light from the moon is not real, it's not glowing. But it is fully perceived as real. You would never say that the moon doesn't have any light to it. We look at moonlight all the time, right? In that same way, the Arruda Lagna, it's not real, but yet it's fully luminescent and existing and going through its phases. Yeah.
But each house has its own Arruda?
Each house has its own Arruda Lagna. Today, we're going to only focus on the Arruda Lagna of the Ascendant. Because we're not going to talk about how people perceive your children. That's not what we're going to look at today, which would be the Arruda Lagna of the 5th. We're just going to be talking about how people perceive you. And you are the Lagna. You are the Lagna. But how people perceive you and who you are. Some people are evil people. And because of their intelligence, they can do themselves up in a certain way to look really good in reality. Other people are really good people. But because of the reflection happening, they, everybody looks at them and they're like, this person, they probably didn't take a bath in a week. I don't want to, they could be like smarter and a better healer and have everything better than the person who looks good. But, we live in a reality where it's all about what things look like. When you buy things in the store, they've proven if it's flashed a few times in front of you, it's be more recognizable. If it's more recognizable, it's more socially acceptable. If it's more socially acceptable, you're more likely to buy it. If you've seen other people in movies using something, you associate with it, it looks good, and you're going to buy it. So this world that we live in is all about the mind. And it's all about what people are perceiving. It's not about what it is. In the end, it's about what it is, because they'll buy it and it'll either work or it won't work. But whether they make that initial sale, whether they decide to hire you as their doctor, or as their web designer, or as whatever it is, it's all about that initial image. We live in a world of image. It's called Maya. Maya is existing in our heads. So that's how the Arruda Lagna is related to the moon. It's not really existing. It's existing in the mind. But now if you look at somebody and you start projecting that they're dirty and probably haven't taken a bath in a week and what can they know, there's some reality to that. So the image is not... So the moon, even though it's not giving off its own light, it's still light. So in the same way, the image, even though it's not the source of the situation, it's reflecting a reality. And that reality is being perceived. Okay. So Arruda Lagna. Anything we're going to add? Last week, what are the factors that we looked at with Ārūḍha Lagna last week? Main factors. Ārūḍha Lagna itself.
Is that it can only be in 50% of the chart.
Which shows half of its reality.
Right.
When we start reading from the Ārūḍha Lagna, what were the main points that we studied yesterday and looked at last class, and really tested, saw work, and that we know?
This is some. Hold on. It's a guy that I've never seen. Maybe the dog got out again.
Come on
It's
in.
Inder.
Oh. Hi.
All about image and reality. It's all about how things are projected.
Well, we talked a lot about how the principles of Ārūḍha
Okay.
really affect that.
Even more primary. What is the most basic thing? First things you look at when you look at Ārūḍha Lagna.
What house
What's the
it
first
falls
things
in
we
the
look at?
chart.
What house it falls in? What else?
Planets are in it, what planets?
Planets in it?
And
What
it's
about the
aspecting.
planets? Planets aspecting it?
Lord of Ārūḍha Lagna.
The Lord of Ārūḍha Lagna. The Lord of it. If it's exalted, high status. Debilitated, low status. So we know the status of a person based on the Lord of the Ārūḍha Lagna. What do they become known for? Planets with Ārūḍha Lagna. What can you become famous for? If you try and be a famous yoga teacher, and in your chart it's showing you'll be a famous engineer, keep trying. But everybody will go to your yoga classes and be like, wow, you can really, as soon as you say something about mathematics, they'll remember that part. So it's very important that for success we follow what we can become famous for.
So 10th from Ārūḍha Lagna.
We're not going houses from Ārūḍha
We're
Lagna.
not going houses.
That's what we're going to go today.
Oh.
I'm going to explain there's a different rule when we start going houses from Ārūḍha Lagna. But so planets with it give us an idea of what the person is known for.
Okay, when you say planets with it, you mean aspecting by graha or Rashtrishta?
Conjunct,
Conjunct only.
primarily.
Okay.
Planets aspecting will be so small and will only be in the dashas. Though if there's multiple malefics aspecting the Ārūḍha Lagna, it's a cursed Arruda. Arruda Lagnas can be cursed
Well, all
because it's a Bhavapada. Every Bhavapada can be cursed.
curse. Okay.
Just to clarify on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody has Libra rising, their Ārūḍha Lagna would be Venus?
No.
No.
So if somebody has Libra rising, Libra is like the sun. It's who they really are. Then Venus, that's how they make decisions. It's how they're thinking. It's their intelligence. It's like Venus. So their intelligence in the world, they want things to be beautiful. They want comfort. They want to be around pretty people and music like this. Venus, right? That's how they're thinking. Then we count from Libra to Venus. And then we count that many houses from there.
From Libra to where Venus is in the next house.
So that is. So if Venus was in the second, it'd be 1, 2, and then again 1, 2. So Arruda Lagna would be in the third. We've done this in other classes, so to really get it good,
Yeah.
let's do this on a break.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? And Ajaya or Mo will help you with that. They're sitting in front of me, so I got to be tough with them.
Okay, but can we go back to, if you don't have any planets in your Ārūḍha Lagna, then you're just known for the sign?
The sign, the energy of the sign, and we'll talk about other aspects of the
Okay.
root in a minute. But we really went through each chart and showed how people become famous for that area of a planet. Planet conjunct the Arruda Lagna, automatically that becomes so important, that planet in their life, for what they become known for publicly. It's a public image. Arruda, if you're all by yourself in a cave, does Arruda matter?
No.
Who's going to see you?
God.
When Arruda is important is when you're interacting with other people. How you're projecting yourself, it's all about the mind. Now, this section, this is chapter 3 of my book on Arrudas, which still has 2 more chapters to go, it starts, and this is what you had the copy of, the old version. This is the new version.
Okay.
Whole different level. So I start here with some quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, and this is to understand conceptual reality. And first verse says, and it's Krishna speaking from a superconscious state. So it's the Paramatma speaking. It's that supreme essence of the universe speaking. And it's saying, for me, the great Brahman is the womb. For that eternal essence, God is the womb. In it I place the seed. The origin of all beings exists from that. So the primal existence places a seed in God, and from that all existence is born. Right? In all wombs, the next verse, forms come to be of which Brahman is the great womb. I am the seed-sowing father. So it's saying, just like everything is born in the womb, so also is this seed that gives birth to all creation. Now, what is the seed that gives birth to your physical creation?
What is the seed?
Not for your mother and father's level of seed. On the level of your father's seed, it's semen.
Oh, well, right. It's
and the egg.
It's a divine...
But on the spiritual level.
On the light. Like
the light. What is the light?
The light, it's the soul.
It's the soul. So the soul is the seed. And with that seed goes in the womb, and material creation happens around you, and you're given a body. There's no bodies given to a non-soul. So that seed that the Absolute creates and puts in the womb of Brahma is the soul. So the soul comes from the Absolute, it's put in the womb of material creation, and a body is born. Next verse is Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, thus the Gunas born of material nature, born from Prakriti, the material nature, bind down in the body the imperishable embodied one. So here it's saying that the Gunas, the three Gunas that we all know about, it is that which binds the Atma into this body. Very important. The Gunas are bringing you here, they're keeping you in the body. As long as the Gunas are working in you, you'll keep coming back to a body. When you transcend the Gunas, your soul is free. What happens when the soul is about, before it gets put into a body, a manas is given to it. A mind. It is that mind that perceives Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva and becomes attached to it. Okay. So now Parashara, he talks about the grahas in BPHS, chapter 3. And in verse 22, he tells us the gunas of the planets. What are the gunas of the planets?
The gunas of the planets, the sun, the moon, Jupiter, or Saturn.
No. What are the Rajas planets?
Mercury, Venus.
And someone else, Tamas planets.
Saturn, Mars.
Okay. What about the nodes? Does Parashara tell us?
Well,
Does he tell us?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay.
So he doesn't tell us.
Alright.
That's,
Okay, we'll leave it alone.
no, he doesn't tell us, but what do we assume?
That Saturn and Rahu are like one another, and K2 and Mars are like one another.
So it makes the nodes what?
Tamas.
Tamas. But does Parashara tell us?
No.
No.
So we're inferring. It's always good to know when we're inferring and when it's stated. Now, Parashara, what does he literally says, in this verse, Parashara says, Surya, moon, and Jupiter are Sattva. Mercury and Venus are Rajas. Sun, Saturn, and Mars are Tamas. And then he says Prakrital, which means all that manifests. He says, everything that manifests is coming through these gunas. So he tells us the gunas of the planets, and then he says, and it is these gunas which are manifesting everything. These gunas are making everything happen through the planets. That's directly what he tells us after he tells us the guna of the planet. And this is back to the Gita here, this next verse. Yeah. Actions in all cases are performed by the gunas of material nature.
I don't understand.
Huh.
I don't understand this.
Which
How
part?
can action be performed by this abstract thing, which is a guna?
They're performing it through the planets.
No, the planets impart that nature to the person, but he's saying, Krishna here is saying that actions in all cases are performed by the gunas.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
He's giving us a very abstract comment. How to understand it. That's what Vedanga is for. The different limbs of the Vedas. And Parashara is telling us the same thing. He gave us the gunas of the planets, and he said all that manifests comes through this. Okay? So, now if we look, there's 3 types of sattva, 2 types of rajas, 2 types of tamas. Through those 3 types of sattva and 2 of the rajas and tamas, everything is manifesting through them. But not just the planet, but the guna of the planet particularly. If you still don't understand the next few verses, let me know. So, what are the gods connected to Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva? Sattva is Vishnu. And what's Vishnu do? Sustains everything. Rajas is who? Rajas. Brahma. Brahma's the Rajas. And what's Brahma known for?
Creation.
He created everything. So Rajas creates. Sattva sustains. And who's the god connected to Tamas?
Shiva.
And what's Shiva known for?
Boom!
Transformation.
So what's the job of Tamas?
To destroy whatever is not
To destroy and remove what's not needed. Okay? The whole God reality, we have to use it in a way that makes us understand reality better, but not that confuses us. We understand these gods so that we can understand these abstract concepts in a little bit more of a concrete way. So everything, you could say everything happens through the gunas, or you could say everything happens through Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. There's no difference. Now, if we look at the Vishnu sustains. So we have Jupiter. Jupiter sustains the living and non-living world. Everything is sustained through him. He creates the harmony that makes things work well together. It's the Akash element. If people aren't getting along, it's because there's not enough good space. The key word is space. A space in Sanskrit is Akash. So when there's good space, people get along. When there's bad space, people don't get along. So Jupiter is making everything get along and work together harmoniously. That's the sattva of Jupiter. When we use Shuladasha, if Jupiter is aspecting the Shuladasha sign, it won't kill you. You know that rule, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen it work?
I see it, especially if transiting Jupiter is in that Shuladasha sign.
Even transiting, it'll protect you.
Yo.
That's the power of Jupiter to protect you. Now, how does Jupiter protect you? Shuladasha, for those who don't know, is timing accidents and death. When you're going to die, when you're going to be in a terrible accident. That's his specialty.
Death.
So it's when your life force is going to leave you.
Why is it his specialty?
Because
That's my assignment.
it's his homework.
Yeah.
Is it your chart?
It's his research.
It's my research project.
I had Saturn on Ascendant. You don't think that helps?
Huh?
Saturn
I
on
see I have Saturn with
He
the
was
root of my
chosen for a
5th house.
reason.
5th house is knowledge, and Saturn is suffering. So I have